You're a master forger who prints a small nation's entire currency. This is you, a basement that hums with the heartbeat of an offset press, ink under your fingernails so deep it'll never wash out, and laid across the drying rack in front of you is a 50 note for the Republic. Crisp, perfect, the governor's signature curling just so. It's fake. It's also better than the real thing, because the real thing is printed by a broke government on worn-out plates, and you're an artist. In about a week this note will buy bread in the capital and nobody, not one soul, will ever know it came out of your hands. You don't print money, you print belief. Let's go back, because nobody starts here. You started with a gift and a grudge. The gift, you were an engraver, a printmaker, the kind of obsessive who can carve a portrait into a steel plate so fine you need a loupe to see the genius. You were so good the National Mint hired you, back when the Republic still pretended it had a future. You helped design the very banknotes you'd one day forge. The watermark, the intaglio ridges, the microprint hiding in the border, the little security thread that glows under UV. You built the locks, then the grudge, they laid you off when the currency collapsed, paid you your last month in money that lost half its value before you could spend it, and the same governor whose signature you'd engraved gave a televised speech about belt tightening from a palace with gold faucets. You walked out of that mint with nothing but a head full of every secret that makes a banknote real. And a head full of secrets, in a country drowning in worthless paper, is a loaded gun. So you go home to your basement and you build the impossible, one security feature at a time, because that's the whole game. A banknote is just a checklist of things that are supposed to be too hard to fake. The watermark first, the ghost in the paper everyone holds up to the light. The mint embeds it in the pulp, you can't, so you go sideways, a pressure dye and a translucent resin, pressed wet, that fools the light and the thumb both. The intaglio, the raised ink you feel with a fingertip, you rebuild the deep etch press the mint retired, because you remembered where they sold it for scrap. The microprint, the line of text disguised as a line, you can do in your sleep, you wrote it. The UV thread, a strip of the right phosphor, laid in by hand, glowing the exact sick green when the money changer waves his little light. One by one you pick the locks you forged, and you laugh, alone, in the ink smell and the press hum, because they paid you to build a vault and then handed you the only copy of the key. Every lock is only as honest as the locksmith, and a hungry locksmith remembers every door he ever built. Now you've got perfect notes, and here's where every fool before you died: distribution. Print a mountain and spend it all in one place and you're a counterfeiter. Prices spike, somebody notices, the trail leads home. The trick isn't printing, it's restraint. You spread the notes thin, like poison in a reservoir, a few through the produce markets, a few through the money changers who don't ask, a few laundered through a cousin's appliance shop that suddenly does suspiciously brisk business in fans. You never flood, you seep. You behave less like a crook and more like a quiet, disciplined second mint, matching your output to what the economy can swallow without burping. The greedy ones always print the deluge and drown in it. You print the drizzle, and the drizzle makes you rich and invisible at once. Print a flood and you're a criminal. Print a trickle, and you're just monetary policy nobody voted for. Then one night, staring at your own production ledger by the light of the drying lamp, you feel the floor tilt under you, because you realize the size of what you're actually holding. The Republic's real mint is barely running, no foreign currency to buy ink, presses breaking down, plates worn to mush. Your notes aren't a parasite on the money supply anymore. In some weeks they're the better part of it. You're not faking the currency. You've quietly become a co-author of it. And a man who controls how much money exists controls what everything costs, who can eat, which markets boom and which ones starve. You start nudging, a little more supply when you want the merchants flush and grateful. A little less when you want to watch a rival's prices choke. You're running interest rates from a basement with a hand press, and the governor on the TV thinks he's still driving. The man who decides how much money exists doesn't need to be rich. He gets to decide what rich even means. Stage 4, and the hunters arrive, because you can't move this much paper without somebody smart eventually smelling it. A central bank investigator, sharp, underpaid, furious, starts pulling notes and comparing serial runs, and your discipline is the only reason he hasn't already found home. So you don't hide from him. You hire him, not directly, that's amateur hour. You make your notes the standard. You quietly get a few of your best into the bank's own reserves, into the governor's own payroll, so that the institution hunting your money is now circulating it, paying salaries with it, defending it as real because admitting otherwise means admitting the whole republic is broke and bluffing. You don't beat the investigation. You make the investigation depend on you being innocent. The day his own paycheck is printed in your basement, he stops being a hunter and becomes, without knowing it, your best employee. The cleverest way to survive the people chasing you is to make your survival the only thing keeping them paid. And that's the peak, the thin, clean air at the very top. You become the shadow treasury of an entire nation. Not a crook with a press anymore, an institution with no name and no building. The official money supply and your money supply have braided together so tight that nobody could untangle them without unraveling the country. You've got more real wealth than the men who run the place, and you've got something they don't. You understand the machine, because you are the machine. You sit in your basement like a spider who turned the whole economy into a web, and every transaction in the republic plucks a thread you can feel. The governor signs notes you designed, printed in a basement he'll never find, spent by people who'd riot if they knew. That's mastery. That's the cheat code nobody else cracked. A throne is loud and a vault has a door, but the man who owns the money itself owns everyone who ever has to touch it. Here's the crack, though, and it's the oldest sin in any artist's soul: vanity. You got so good that being invisible started to ache. Anyone can print a passable fake. You print perfect ones, and a perfect thing nobody can admire is, to an artist, almost worse than no thing at all. So somewhere in the fat years, you do the small, fatal, human thing. You sign your work, not loud, God, not loud. A flaw so tiny it's basically a fingerprint, a single hair-thin imperfection you tuck into the engraving on one denomination. A private signature only you would ever recognize. A way of standing in a crowded market years from now and thinking that one's mine. I made that. I'm the best who ever lived and only I will ever know. It feels like nothing. It feels like a victory lap. It's the loose thread on the whole tapestry, and you wove it in yourself, smiling. The fall starts with a coincidence, the way the worst falls do. The Republic, finally, totally broke, makes a desperate move. It dumps its own dying currency and adopts the dollar overnight to stop the bleeding. And in a single televised announcement, your life's work, your stacked inventory, your braided shadow treasury, the entire money supply you spent years quietly co-authoring, all of it becomes wallpaper. Worthless paper, the exact thing they paid you in the day you walked out of the mint. The wheel came all the way around. But that's not even the knife. The knife is that the dollarization brings in foreign auditors, real ones, with real equipment, to sweep up the old notes for destruction, and one of them, cataloging the trash of a dead currency, finds your signature. That one hair-thin flaw, repeated across millions in notes, on denominations the official mint's records say it printed far fewer of than exist. The arithmetic doesn't close, and a forger's whole life is the arithmetic closing. It accelerates like a press with the brake cut. The auditors trace the overissue. The investigator on your payroll, the one whose salary you printed, suddenly has every reason in the world to prove he was the hunter and not the hound, and he runs at you twice as hard to save his own neck. The money changers who got rich on your trickle line up to swear they always suspected. And the governor, the man whose signature you carried out of that mint like a hostage, needs, more than anything on earth, a single villain to hang the whole rotten collapse on, so the people blame one master forger in a basement instead of 40 years of his own theft. You spent your career making sure no note could ever lead home. You never imagined the thing that led home would be your own pride, engraved in steel, repeated 1,000,000 times, signed. The climax finds you in the basement at the end, where it began, the press gone cold, men on the stairs whose boots you can hear through the resin smell and the dead ink air. You've got two things in front of you on the drying rack. One is a passport in a name that doesn't exist, printed by the only hands good enough to make it real, good enough to walk you across a border and into a quiet life where nobody's ever heard of the Republic or its money or its missing master. The other is the original plate, the master engraving, the true one, the lock and the key both, the single object that proves it was all you, the most damning thing in the country and also the most beautiful thing you ever made. Take the passport and run, and you live, anonymous, ordinary, the best who ever did it and nobody will ever know, the exact invisibility that hollowed you out in the first place. Take the plate and stay, and you'll be caught, but the world will finally know whose hands made the most perfect money that ever fooled a nation. You're an artist. That was always the disease. You reach for the plate, because a forger can fake every security feature ever invented, can fool the light and the thumb and the UV lamp and a whole central bank, but the one thing you could never counterfeit was the need to be seen. The boots reach the bottom of the stairs as your ink-black fingers close around the steel. They'll print your name in the morning paper at last. Real ink, real letters, the only edition you ever wanted, and the only one you'll never get to admire. That's a wrap for today. I'll be dropping more stories like this soon. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one.